courthouse the other day in the hallway. You're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Well, I'm not sure you can tell where I am, but can you kind of see that right over my shoulder there?
Is that one of the bars that we've been talking about?
I think it says Waterfall. I'm not positive. I don't read backwards very well. I don't read forwards very well.
Well, good evening, Michael
Hello there,
Bryant.
Kenney Baden. How are you?
In Dedham, Massachusetts.
I'm in Canton today. Now I'm in Canton.
And now you moved over to Canton? Yes, because you're at the bars. You're in Canton now.
Yes.
So if I had guessed where in the world is justice, Michael Bryant, I would have said I would have been wrong.
You've been wrong. You know, it's funny. Somebody commented earlier, "Hey, how can you say you're live in Canton when you're at the courthouse?" And,
Because
okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's right. That's technically correct, but people kind of associate Canton with this case, even though the courthouse is in Dedham. So we were there earlier, and now we're in Canton.
And you're right there, right?
It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes across town. No big deal.
Yeah, and you've been there now. This is what, your third or fourth trip up there already?
My 23rd trip. No, yeah, it's been third or fourth. I can't remember now.
Yeah,
so I'm over here eating at the waterfall, and kind of getting a feel for what's going on there and chatting with the folks who work there. And let's just say they're not excited about another trial coming their way, because it's become sort of, I'm kind of out here, I guess. It's been sort of a tourist stop, as it were, for the true crime aficionados who are following the Karen Reed case. Up the road there, McCarthy's right here, and it's about a 3-minute walk or 4-minute stumble, depending on how many drinks you've had. And then here at the waterfall, of course, is the last place that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe and a number of others from that night's activities were before they headed to 34 Fairview. So it is a very well-known place, but not necessarily, according to the folks who work here, for the reason they would prefer it becomes known. I'll tell you this, unbiased opinion, an amazing hamburger, an amazing Angus beef hamburger. It was massive. I couldn't finish it. It was massive and very good, very well done.
I know you took a photograph of it so you can annoy all my vegan friends.
Is that what that is? I don't know if Missy has access to that or not. No, she does. Oh, she says she does. So we're going to be debuting. This would be the Waterfall hamburger. Does she have it? She does not have it. She's looking.
But let me say what she's looking. Hi, Shy Gal 8. Nice to have you back again. Hey, Kay Schmidt. Nice seeing you, Brooklyn. It's Michael. He pronounces it Michael, although as you know, my series says Michel Bryant, like a Bryant here. Oh, I think we're gonna see something. Here it is. There it is. This is the waterfall.
Instead of vertically.
And we're not getting any promotion from this. We're not getting any money. You're just showing what you ate.
The bill. Yeah.
You just paid the bill.
So it's a massive hamburger. There's no real point of reference there because it's got those big thick fries, home fries, I think they call them. But that's a GI bomb, and it was very good.
I'm Prince Lover. Well, I have a surprise for you later on in the show, but because of that, But yeah, you're kind of like, have you ever tried a vegan hamburger while we're on the subject?
What did they call them? What they call them? The mystery.
Well, there's an Impossible Burger. There's Beyond. Yeah. There's Tubi barking.
Tubi, you just started talking about hamburger in the
dog. Tubi said, "I want one." But anyhow, no. There's been a lot of people there. You've been there all day, and you talk to people, as you mentioned. I know a lot of us want to know. A lot of people want to know what happened today in the courtroom, and we have a new motion to talk about.
What a surprise!
Why don't I turn this over to you to kind of narrate what you did and the people you spoke to. And you can only do that if you're on the ground. And only Justice Serve TV was on the ground. We were there, even though, I will mention again, according to Canton, according to the state of Massachusetts, we are not real journalists. We're journalists, but we're not the kind that gets into a court.
Yes, not media. YouTube is not media. So whenever the participants enter the courthouse and the courtroom, and there's nothing else to wait for all their supporters outside. This is the Karen Reed contingent.
Right.
Then they go across the street, which is the county clerk's office. Get your marriage license, file a civil claim, whatever. And they have this great setup down in it's the basement technically, but it's kind of the cafeteria. And these folks just take it over in a nice way. They're just staying out of the cold. They watch the trial in there, or the hearings that are unfolding. So they watch. And during one of the breaks, while you were busy, I was able to, I wouldn't want to interrupt them during proceedings because they will shout me down, I'm sure. So I just stopped in and chatted with them for a few minutes during one of the breaks, not the lunch, not the end of day, but just one of those, Bev, let's watch the rotating fan for what seems like an eternity, one of those breaks. And so we had a chance to talk for a few minutes. I think we're going to play that. Do we want to do that now, or you want to do that later? What do you want?
Why don't we play some of it now, and so we can get a feel for what's happening there?
Okay. And because Missy and I were like, hey, I don't know, let's see how to do this. She's going to run it. So let me just ask generally what you guys think about what's happened so far. And what do you think in particular about the investigation, the federal investigation now? At least it's been represented that it's ended.
No, it's not.
So
yeah. Well, why do you think that representation was made?
they may, it hasn't been officially announced. Just because Hank Brennan says stuff doesn't mean it's completely true. We don't completely know. And the feds just don't go around randomly calling a chief of police or anyone else saying the investigation's over. And with this investigation, even if per se they're saying that it's over, that doesn't mean that this first investigation didn't lead to 3 other investigations off of this. This case is also connected to the Sandra Birchmore case. We well know that the Sandra Birchmore case is not closed. So just, if it is true, which we really don't know just because Spanky says that doesn't mean that if they close one door, 3 other doors don't open.
Okay, so other than your suspicion that Hank Brennan might be just saying things to make himself look good and maybe close the door, what do you have it?
The office had no comment.
He lies a lot.
Well, that's why I'm asking. What's your source for the information?
When the feds come out and they do a press conference, then I'll believe it. But like I said, just because one door closes doesn't mean 3 other doors don't open up off this investigation. As I said, Sandra Birchmore's case is still open. That's still ongoing, and that does have connection to the Karen Reed case. And the players are the same players in it.
So you're saying Karen Reed personally, or the team suggested that it's still ongoing?
Well, they had no comment. So the media called the office in Boston. They had no comment. Why?
They're saying it on sources.
See a trial? How often do you see a trial where the prosecutor or the DA don't make press conferences discussing what takes place? The defendant's attorneys are the ones speaking to the press. That tells you something.
I will tell you, in my experience, quite often the prosecution says nothing during the course of the trial. That's not unusual.
Well, I think it's unusual because I follow a lot of trials, and I've always seen a prosecutor, whenever there's a big change in the case, there will be some sort of press conference that takes place when there's going to be a second trial. They will discuss in some way, they'll say, we won't discuss the details of an ongoing investigation, but we will tell you we plan on moving forward with this and we plan on moving forward with that. That happens almost every time, especially in a high profile case, especially if they're trying to win the public trust. But that doesn't seem to be the case right now. And I wonder why.
And you're talking about Hank Brennan, who represented Whitey Bulger. We here in Massachusetts know how crooked the stuff rolls around in this place. And everybody is covering for anybody. So Hank Brennan is on his knees and he's saying whatever he wants to say. We've watched it in open court, him just spill whatever he wants to spill out. And Bev Canoni doesn't say anything to stop him. But yet when the defense gets up to say one thing, they're interrupted 1,000,000 times and the flow of things. So Hank Brennan can get up there and literally do whatever he wants to do, and there's no repercussion. So he can say whatever he wants to say. Nobody here is going to take what Hank Brennan says at 100% because he can do and say whatever he wants.
Does anybody have any thoughts about the fact that Brennan's a defense attorney now?
I want to know how Brennan came up with signing a thing saying he's doing this trial for $75,000 and it's already up to $225,000. Us, the taxpayers of Massachusetts that work, we have this weasel piece of shit up there paying him more than what he even signed on for. Everything that he has said so far just rolls off and there's other stories to it. There's no trust. We don't trust Hank Brennan. We don't trust the prosecution. In the state of Massachusetts, you're innocent until proven guilty. And right now, no matter how you feel about Karen Reed, you should be disgusted at the investigation into this, because there's no way they should be convicting her on what they have. There's tainted evidence. The investigation has been foul since day one. And all the police officers here, you take an oath of what your job is, and they've broken so many oaths in here. So nothing that they did, Karen Reed, we shouldn't even be here. We shouldn't have to fight like this, because she should have been let off a long time ago. Amen. And they're backed up against the wall, because they know if one thing, they should have had lesser charges on her. They're the ones that overcharged her. And right now they're scrambling. They're scrambling so hard because they don't want any of this to go on the police officers. They're being protected right now.
Let me ask this generally. How many folks are here, and you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but how many folks are here because of Karen Reed? How many are here, let me start with, because of the process that's concerning you? Yeah, so everybody's kind of in concert there, that it's both because of her and because of the process.
And it also rolls into Sandra Birchmore, because we're all here for Sandra Birchmore too. And we're even here even more because of Enrique Delgado Garcia. Yes. So it's rolling into one after the other after the other.
And a common misconception is that people who support Karen Reed don't want justice for John O'Keefe. It's actually not true. The fact of the matter is understanding the fact that Karen Reed is innocent. We understand that in order to get justice for John O'Keefe, you must acquit Karen Reed first.
Would you agree, though, that John O'Keefe is kind of getting lost in the shuffle?
Boston police officer John O'Keefe won.
Right.
And we shouldn't forget that.
He's never lost. He's never lost. That's a false statement. The Massachusetts State Police failed John O'Keefe when they didn't bother to do their investigation following any protocol or procedure. They didn't do anything according to what they should have in order to get him justice. So no matter who did it, who knows if they'll ever find who did it? Who knows if he'll ever get justice?
Well, what I would...
Sure. When you go around with your program and you have involved yourself in other police departments, other cases and stuff like that, interviewing, where have you ever seen that a police department collects blood evidence with no photos and puts them in red solo cups into a stop and shop bag?
Yeah.
This case should have been gone right then and there.
Yeah, there's no doubt when we first covered this, and that was when I was with Law and Crime, the red Solo cup was a joke that we talked about, and the snow blower or the leaf blower to blow the snow away.
These are drops in the bucket.
Yeah.
There is no denying.
But aren't they indications of something bigger?
The fact is, yes, the fact of the matter is that there's more things wrong with this investigation than done right. And I'm not going to hear negligence. I don't want to hear that. Because you look at the contrast difference between the way Michael Proctor conducted the Brian Walsh investigation to the way he conducted the Karen Reed investigation. And that tells you alone that Michael Proctor knows how to do his job.
All of them became incompetent in the same day with 20 years
Look at all the
service.
lies
They all became incompetent in the same day.
Let me ask you one phrase that seems to resonate with folks. Grave concerns.
Beth Canoni's job is a grave concern to her. Grave concerns for her.
And try to get the feds in Commonwealth so that the public can't see it, can't know what's going on. That way there, the Commonwealth can, control the narrative to mainstream media, but yet the public is blocked out because of the injustice that's going on.
The last trial, she tried to set up the 200-foot buffer zone. That didn't stop us.
We're not stopping, because we want change. And they're actually, before this gets any farther, we support the blue, but we support the good blue, not the ones that are corrupt. And what also should resonate is you don't see the Boston police down here in court all the time, sitting in there for their brother officers. That speaks volumes.
What's the vibe you get from, because there are a lot of officers outside protecting crowd control and all that.
Right now.
Yeah, but what's your vibe from them?
There's a respect among it down here. There's a respect between the officers that are working down here, the Dedham police. the Massachusetts State Police. During the trial, we had the Quincy Bicycle Police. We had tons of law enforcement down here. And there was a mutual respect as far as not getting in each other's faces. But yet in the beginning of the trial, you had an innocent woman trying to walk into court because you're innocent until proven guilty. And they wouldn't even protect her out there. That's a disgrace when you take an correct oath.
You know, I've been here a number of times, and the support for Karen Reed or the objections to what the prosecution and the state has done, obvious, very obvious. Has anybody you've seen come down here been pro-prosecution? And what would happen if somebody showed up with a big sign that said, one came last week?
Only when it's not too hot, it's not too rainy, it's not too cold. Sometimes they hold their signs upside down. They don't even know what's going on.
They hide their face.
And they usually don't stay the whole day.
I'd also like to point out that it's okay for them to be inside of the buffer zone with their signs and bullhorns and nothing gets done with it.
What about the music inside the courtroom?
Yeah.
Or him recording live inside the courtroom?
We have stood out in the front of the courthouse steps in rain, snow, freezing sleet, 90-degree days, and stood in line to wait to get into court. And they have literally walked there, 5, 6 people, and were able to enter the court before anybody else. Well, we stood out like that.
What about Google hip checking Karen Reed? And he's not allowed in there, but now he's allowed in there.
Yeah, because it's in the trial. Because it's in the trial.
Or what about Boston police officer John O'Keefe's mother flipping the bird on camera in the court?
Or what about their walk-in, right? They have a detective that's the Boston police officer that walks the family in. I don't understand that part, right? Why is there a Boston police officer walking the family in? He should, right?
Why is it that the O'Keefe family can roll up in front of the courthouse, park in front of the courthouse, get out of their car and enter court, and Karen's gotta go down the street and walk all the way up? Thank God she has supporters like she does, because she's protected because other people have not protected. Remind you, an innocent woman until proven guilty.
Right, but not in this.
Anybody that enters a courthouse is innocent until proven guilty, and people forget that in the world.
Massachusetts forgets that.
Massachusetts
in general
but it's
forgets
not gonna
that.
end there. We're not gonna go away, even when this ends.
The train didn't stop. The train didn't stop. Yeah.
Right now, all the supporters down here are all walks of life, race, color, and creed. Yet we all band together despite all our differences to back, because we want to see Karen rid of these bogus charges. We want to see justice for Boston police officer John O'Keefe. We want answers into what happened. We want answers for Enrique Delgado Garcia. We want answers for Sandra Birchmore. And we're banding together to do the right thing.
Amen.
But the police are banding.
We've never been violent. We've never been violent. We've accepted everybody as they've come.
One incident,
Never once. Not one incident.
I traveled here from Tennessee just to be with these people. Because they inspire me. Because they're out here. Every hearing, these people are out here. Rain, snow, doesn't matter, the cold, they're out here.
Degrees.
That has to tell you something, you know, that has to tell you, and it's always, there's no incidents.
That's what I'm saying. Yep, stand out.
There's no incidents that take place, nobody's getting arrested, nobody's getting into fights, it's nothing. I've never met a more kind, generous, sweet, hospitable group of people in my life. And every time I come here, this is my 5th trip here. My 5th trip here. And every time I have never had a negative experience with any of these people.
Got to be here for the trial?
I'll come for some of the dates of the trial, sure.
That was when he said that too about standing out too. That was always my point is, I want, regardless if there's one person out there, if there's all of us out there, and like they said, rain, snow, sleet, hail, I want people to see that we're outraged enough to be out there. That's the problem. People aren't understanding that. That's the issue, right? Is we are taking time out of our days. We all work. We all have children.
We're not all jobless.
We're not all jobless. We have normal things, going on in our daily lives that we sacrifice to be here because we believe in this movement, because we built this movement. And movements grow, they shrink, they change, people fall, things happen, but we've had nothing but, thank God, positive experiences throughout this whole thing.
And the world wonders, like, how can this be such a big corruption and all this, and if there's no way that's gonna happen. Here in Massachusetts, we remember the archdiocese stuff.
Let's be real.
Let's be real. That went all the way up to the Pope. I mean, they hit priests everywhere that molested little boy. That was here.
One question: why wouldn't Bev just recuse herself? Knowing that we're all front.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Justice Serve TV. It'll run.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Well,
I have to say,
as you
first
just
of all,
heard, House.
So a couple of things I want to throw out there before I forget.
yeah, and
This
throw out who
Enrique-
these people are again.
Yeah, first of all, that was we're in the basement of the county clerk's building, which is right across the street from the courthouse. And this is where they go to, seek shelter and just kind of hang out and watch whatever's happening in court until people come or go and they can, put themselves back on the street to create that presence and support that they want to do. You may have heard Enrique Garcia's name. You may not be as familiar with that as you are the Birchmore case, or obviously Karen Reed. He was a recruit trainee in the police department, in the Massachusetts State Police, and apparently died in the midst of some sort of training exercise. Perhaps it was a boxing match within the recruits. And there's some suggestion that because he was one of the few Latin Americans on the force or training to be on the force, there was some sort of racial discrimination that manifested itself in this match or event that was likely to cause him injury, and he ultimately died. So they've heard nothing about that. It happened more than 3 months ago, and they're still wondering what the hell happened.
Well, I tell you, it brings back to me. I love Massachusetts juries. I loved the Hernandez jury. They gave Aaron Hernandez a fair trial, knowing he had been convicted of a murder case beforehand. They gave him a fair trial because, you see them. They stand up for, the Constitution. The state must prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt and all. And I just think that be interesting to check back in with him. And I threw out to you earlier that maybe we can try to get some kind of mock jury going here on Justice Served every night that Karen Reed is there, that we can get some kind of on trial. We can get some kind of mock jury. But I do want to point out again, because of the issue, my husband is in the Sandra Birchmore case, Dr. Michael Baden. He's on the civil. He was hired by the civil attorneys when it was still being called a suicide. And he took a look at it. There's a Boston Globe article on it, I believe, and said, no, it is a homicide. And thereafter, the rest of the story that you can fill it in. I think Michael even better than I.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier about how she was allegedly, involved with this defendant officer and killed herself as a result of becoming pregnant by him. That was the original finding until one Dr. Michael Baden, for the civil side of the matter, did his own evaluation and said, no, this was homicide. Therefore, the feds brought in their own expert rather than just say, well, whatever Dr. Baden said, it's good enough for me. They brought in their own expert who happened to agree with Dr. Baden. And so charges have been filed. That case is plodding along in the federal system. Hey, Brooklyn not only says, who are these people, which we think we've answered, but he points out that my mic cube is upside down here. Or am I upside down?
I thought that was a great pickup.
There we go. Okay. So.
There we go. And then we will get to this Prince lover. What happened to them? I'm a bit confused about what's really going on in Massachusetts. We'll get to that because there's a lot going on. But I wanted to show you. Now, I'm not going to have this. Tubi's going to have a really wonderful dinner, and his dog walker is going to have a very interesting morning tomorrow. Because you had a waterfall burger, I decided to show you as a prop. This is in New York City, a smash burger with French fries and all. So we'll have to compare notes on this. But in any event,
such a different treat. I used to take my son there all the time before he went away to college, and he just loved that place. I like it because it's a very interesting mix of you can get a great milkshake there, or you can get a beer. And they do make, it's a solid hamburger. I will say this: it's half the size of the waterfall burger.
Oh my goodness gracious! Because this is a good, 5 inches
Yeah, well, this
long.
is
I mean,
8
it's big, it's
ounces
thick.
or more. It's more than a half
Wow.
a pound of meat.
Wow. So anyhow, that's my prop for you.
I'm
Prince
full, but
Lover.
thanks anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Prince Lover. We'll get to that. So anyhow, I'm moving that over here. So again, all my vegan friends do not get upset when they think that that's about to be consumed on national streaming TV. Okay, so we had a lot happen today while you were out talking, and these people I thought they were just wonderful. I mean, I think they're wonderful.
They're legit. They're just honest, regular folks who are very passionate about what they think is happening in their community, and not just the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about the additional bills. I thought that the Hank Brennan was getting $75,000 and was being renegotiated.
Well, yeah,
in
and
June.
again, I take a lot of what they're blurting out with a grain of salt because it comes from various sources, and maybe it's not double sourced. But the original plan, as I understand it, was $75,000 max up to June. And if things carried on beyond June, it would be renegotiated. So whether or not he's actually run the bill up past $200,000 or not, I really don't know.
Yeah, but anyhow, so we're gonna. I'd like you to continue following them when you go. You seem to have made friends, but you make friends.
Yeah, I'll see them again tomorrow. Yeah, they'll be there.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get their names. Maybe they can be our mock jurors every night.
I'm sure we can round up a few because. As I mentioned earlier, at first they were like, I go in, tell them who I am, and I don't just start rolling, right?
Right.
And I ask if it's okay, and if anybody doesn't want to be on camera or say anything, I understand. And so one or two start talking, and then, as you could tell, it kind of erupts, and everybody has some opinion and some perspective that they want to share.
Yeah, no. Listening to them, which is to me was fabulous because everyone says when you try a case, you shouldn't look at social media. Let me tell you that when we try cases and I have teams that try cases, I suggest they look at social media because you can get a pretty good idea of what people are thinking, and you get some pretty good lines. I mean, I know we borrowed a few lines from social media and thank people because you're trying the case as a lawyer, but they're watching the case as jurors, people on social media. So it's a very, very interesting situation. Speaking about interesting situation, did you see what people coming out of the courtroom today? How was it? What was it like when you were there?
Yeah, pretty. It was actually going on live as we were on later. This is what was that, like 1-ish or so when they left? It was a pretty early day. We could talk about what was planned for today versus what actually happened, but they broke up early and just as usual, and it was funny the other day. Karen Reed came out with Mr. Yannetti, and they went, left. And as I followed Mr. Jackson and Mr. Alessi, they went right. They split, and that was unusual. I hadn't seen that before. Well, today it was Karen Reed and Mr. Jackson, and more as a group that they've normally come and gone as. So I didn't get a chance to yell at them, or I did yell at them, but I didn't get a chance to talk to them as I was across the street doing this. But it looked more. I just felt a real seriousness last time as a result of remember what was going on. It was the whole follow-up to the grave concerns.
Which she still hasn't ruled on, which Judge Beverly Canoni still hasn't ruled on after taking a full day.
Of course. Yeah. So I don't know if her grave concerns are better now or worse, but no real decision on that front. She did rule on one thing today. Should we get into what happened today?
Yeah, let's get into what happened because there were 6 things on the motion. There's also a 7th motion that was filed later this afternoon.
Yeah, so I'll talk about what was going to happen. You tell us what really did happen.
Okay.
We knew the fully throated motion to dismiss was on the calendar. We thought it might be first thing this morning because it's the beefiest of the things on the docket. But no, they went with some of these lesser items, and then they called it short. They ended it in part, I think, because they have a few more issues hanging out there that the court wanted better prepared so that when they do argue them, they'll have all of the information they need and it'll be in front of them and she can hopefully rule. And also because they'll be in federal court tomorrow on the double jeopardy civil rights portion of the case that most will remember was brought in at the state level, saying that these jurors who anonymously said we found her not guilty unanimously on counts 1 and 3, it went up to the highest court and was sent back down, thumbs down. Basically, the court saying that you just can't do this after the fact. If something had happened at the time a non-verdict was rendered, at the time the hung
Jury,
jury,
yeah,
mistrial happened. If you'd done something then, maybe we got something to talk about. But these affidavits coming back willy-nilly, weeks, days plus after, it's just too late, which was not a surprise to anybody. So now they're basically pursuing that same argument, but on the federal level as a civil rights matter for double jeopardy. That's going to be first thing in the morning. So they really didn't get to as much today as we anticipated. And the motion to dismiss went back and forth from being tomorrow, well, no, let's do it Friday. And then it ultimately came back at Alan Jackson's request to tomorrow. He says, I'll be ready. He was concerned at first, and they had asked for extra time because the Commonwealth has been providing new information. Last Friday, a chunk, and then yesterday, a chunk. And it turns out, according to Jackson, based on representations by the Commonwealth, he hasn't had time to look at everything himself. They say it's primarily the same material you've already got, but perhaps from a different source.
Right. That's what was saying. Right.
So based on that representation, Alan Jackson said, okay, I'll be ready for tomorrow. He did also qualify it by saying, I might ask the court for a little extra time to provide supplemental materials if once we've actually looked at everything that the Commonwealth has provided so recently, if something new in there, I want to at least hedge my bets and give me a little more time to provide that before you rule on the motion to dismiss.
And what happened was there was 400 pages of new discovery, 4 new reports from officers, and 15 videos of the Sally Port, and 9 videos of them downloading the videos of the Sally Port, apparently.
Yeah, and we know the whole history of the Sally Port video. It existed, it didn't exist, it was taped over. It was then, of course, I'm calling him, what was his name? Was he a detective? D. Giamonti. He apparently
Detective
was a retired sergeant.
Yes.
Sergeant. He was a sergeant. Sergeant D. He apparently bumped off the videos onto another drive. What's that drive called?
The detective drive.
Detective drive. Of course, it's the detective drive. So that's where this stuff lived and was supposedly now it's been given to the defense.
Right. But not after the first trial's finished, and after the jury went home, and after the judge didn't do what they did in ASAP Rocky and charge the jury. If you find a verdict, then on any count, but you can't find verdicts on another count, you can tell me, and we'll take the partial verdict. Okay.
Yep.
Never seen that done before, but apparently in Massachusetts it wasn't done. So touche. Thank you very much for your donation. Brennan's misrepresentations are a strategic method of taming the jury and communicating with the media by providing clickbait and harmful headlines. I was concerned last week, and I expressed this, that all of this stuff, because remember, it was the defense that provided this email and the billing records to the Commonwealth that happened in July, well after the verdict had come in. And he initially represented to the court that they had gotten them from, I guess, the federal government. They hadn't been provided by the defense, which was untrue. He corrected that misrepresentation, but that lie flew around all over. And I was concerned that if you were going to allege that, you could have asked for an in-camera hearing. The judge could have granted it, released the transcript afterwards if you had to. But in the meantime, Karen Reed, in my opinion, suffers from the taint right now that possibly the defense was doing something wrong. And one of the things I think Hank Brennan has done, whether you like it or not, he is kind of leveling that media playing field that he thought was against him by doing this. Now, is that purposeful? I can't say, but you all can draw your own conclusions.
And remember, one of the things they talked about today, right off the top, was sanctions, right? The Commonwealth wants sanctions because the defense has been talking. We know the whole Karen Reed interview, Boston 25 did that. It was half an hour, and they trickled it out in 5-minute dribs and drabs here and there, and then the whole thing. She's clearly not been shy about talking to the press. And the requested gag order, almost as a sanction, was not going to be directed at her, only her attorneys. And so we looked into 3.6, which is the protective order under the code. And there are exceptions that really seem to cover most of anything that Yannetti said or that any of the other attorneys said. Things that are said in court, which would include up through and including the entire first trial. You can't really claim that if you talk about that again, that it's somehow subject to another protective order. It's public record.
Yeah.
So we didn't hear any sanctions leveled. We didn't hear any gag order. So she didn't. I don't know. Again, is it pocket veto time for Judge Bev? Stuff just kind of lingers, and then I guess it's over. So she hasn't really ruled on any of that.
Right. Interesting, though, there was a sidebar dealing with the grand jury transcripts, but let's go into this, because after asked, what did you think about the way she made the defense team stand up like they were in kindergarten? So this is what happened first. For those who weren't there, it was Mr. Alessi, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Yannetti, and attorney Ms. Little. Attorney Alessi, Jackson, Attorney Yannetti, and Attorney Little that were there, right? And there were 6 things on the calendar. And she started out by saying, lecturing everybody, that she says that all of you understand that whatever you say, okay, by one is said by the other. You have adopted the other person's admission. And she made everybody stand up in the defense team and say that. And yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. And then she went into the invoice billing with Mr. Alessi, who the Commonwealth calls Alessi, but Mr. Alessi, and happened to, my reaction, and I wrote actually in my notes, judge is pissed, okay? That was what that's a legal term. It was a legal term, because she said, why did you tell Alessi, well, you mentioned the invoice, but why didn't you tell me the invoice had been paid? And he said, because you asked me a question, Your Honor, after I said that, and that was the next on my list, because I told you I was doing everything in chronological order. All right. And so the feeling I got is she thinks that there's some kind of a hiding by the defense team about what really went on, because Alessi then says, you can infer by that, Your Honor, that there was no communications after there was a Paul's memo. Remember, there was a email from the ARCA people saying, here's our retainer agreement, or Jackson, I forget which way it went. And it said, send your retainer agreement over and we'll sign it. And then the ARCA people, there was a pause. They'd spoken to the federal government. They can't do that. And so Alessi says you can infer by that nothing happened until Mr. Jackson got the bill back in July, well after the trial ended. And the judge stopped him and said, are you just saying you can infer? Are you telling me there were no conversations? And he says, I can infer, you can infer that. So to me, she wants an affidavit, right? She wants something from Alan Jackson and Yannetti to say they never spoke thereafter to ARCA.
Some sort of affirmative representation. She's, Judge Bev and I are kind of on the same page with this one issue, because I do think there's some gaps in this period of time between, hey, we were going to retain them, then we weren't, and then, wow, an invoice showed up. And we talked about that the other day. Was that just last night? The 0.75 that was billed
last night. Yes, right.
So long ago. That 0.75 that was billed by the ACA experts, and I'm saying, 45 minutes. Come on. All you did was talk about what day we need you in court, how you get here. Tell me a little about your background. I just think it raises questions, and it seems to me Judge Bev had similar questions. And Alessi is kind of the buffer on this whole thing. He's not lying and saying, no, I know for a fact. He's saying, I'm inferring it. Well, if you're inferring it, let's get the folks up here who have the firsthand knowledge of it. So the judge has not gone that far, but at some point she might.
So that's where we were at. And then it kind of stopped and everything kind of calmed down a little bit. There was a little detente in the courtroom. And then Mr. Alessi started with the motion to exclude, and he wanted to exclude first a biomechanical engineer named Dr. Crosby on the issue of dog bites. The issue of dog bites.
And he also studied dog behavior, canine behavior.
Right. And apparently, he is a former police officer who retired, went to Florida, and has testified a lot about canine behavior. Now, we don't need a dog expert to tell us that Chloe, if she's bitten 2 other people in the past, may have some canine behavior issues. I mean, as I keep quoting Bob Dylan, having seen the movie just recently, you don't need an expert there to know which way the wind blows in terms of Chloe.
Let me take an off ramp here to talk about something very interesting that happens in most people's lives. People have dogs; they occasionally bite people, right? Some states have what's called the 1 bite rule.
Right.
Before you're responsible for what your dog might do. That means every dog kind of gets the benefit of, innocent until proven guilty. But if your dog bites somebody one time, no matter what the circumstance, and then it happens again, you're doomed, because the 1 bite rule takes away any protection that you might have. So in this case, Chloe is way.
Wait. Your dog is doomed.
Well, you know, they don't necessarily put the dog out of his misery, but you will be liable as the dog owner for damages caused by that bite after the first bite. So Chloe was, you know, if you believe Chloe was the one who attacked John O'Keefe, that was bite number 3, I think.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on with that motion, because it had also to do with molds and whether or not forensic odontology, can you match a dog bite, you know, and all, because the Commonwealth apparently took a mold that they haven't showed the defense, but you're going to show the defense, and they're going to say the mold doesn't match the dog teeth. But, you know, as Mr. Lussey points out, the same, and he's got the same issues as human forensic odontology. Your skin moves. It's
and the
not
body's
static.
moving. Nobody stands like a statue and lets the dog bite them.
Right. You know,
especially if you're not sober, it's freezing cold, the weather's weird. Yeah, this is, to me, that's the least of the issues, is the puncture wound patterns. If they're determined to be a dog, I'm sorry, Chloe, I don't care what you were doing. If it was Chloe, we don't know if it was Chloe, and we may never know for sure because it's not that relevant. It's a dog. If a dog caused those wounds, then it may not have been from any impact with the car.
Right, and I don't think those wounds, when we saw pictures of them, just as a lay person, it didn't look like that was impacted.
Well, you know, I always go off on this whole damn tail light thing, which I didn't bring with me. I had to limit it somewhere. What I'm bringing, my stuff. I do have the little baby SUV in the car somewhere, but you know, I think of that tail light just exploding on impact. 45 pieces found over a number of days and weeks. Those shards are the kinds of things that you maybe could inflict some scratches, some punctures, some cuts in an arm, but the speed with which that car would have to hit somebody in the arm, I think exceeds logic in this case, if it happened at all.
Yeah, and the judge kind of took an off ramp with him too here in terms of whether or not, because the defense was asking for him to be excluded without even having a Dahlberg-Lanigan hearing. Lanigan is the Massachusetts case that deals with basically Dahlberg in Massachusetts, and she asked the Commonwealth at the end, "Are you planning to call him in your case in chief?" And Hank Brennan said no, he wasn't, and she said okay. So to me, that sounds like she's not planning to deal with this issue unless she needs to. Because she doesn't want to spend another day of Dahlberg hearings going to the trial, because as she mentioned today, hey, you all have to get ready for trial. And that's what they've been saying. The attorneys have been saying that, you know?
Yeah, with all of these things, all these gymnastics taking place, that April 1st trial date has not moved.
No,
you know,
and it doesn't look like it's going to.
No, this thing is just chock-a-block right up until that date. And that'll be the date when they begin jury selection. That's when a trial officially begins, is the first day of jury selection. I don't know, could take a couple days, could take longer. Hard to tell.
Hard to tell, right? And given this, Nancy, thank you for becoming a brand new YouTube member. We truly appreciate it. Then there was a second motion. That came out. All right. By the way, Mary Lara says, wow, what a great report. Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it. We'd like to send Michael Bryant out in the cold.
As soon as it warms up to like 50, I'm out of here. That's it. It's just not challenging enough if it's not in the 30s or 40s.
He's such a good reporter. The second motion was to exclude a meteorologist named Gilman to testify about two things. One is that the ground was hard as a rock, and the second thing was how grounds become hard. And I think Hank Brennan said he agreed not to let Gilman say that. But I have to tell you, Michael, I was thinking about that all day. You know, I'm brought into cases a lot of times to like say, okay, what is this trial team doing? What are the theories? Where are we going? If I'm the defense, I'm not sure I want that out, because if indeed a fall from being drunk and slipping is the mechanism of death, having nothing to do with the car, I want that ground to be as hard as a rock.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think give them something else to think about that was the cause of the fatal injury, whether he stumbled drunkenly and hit his head, or even if he was bumped by the car, if you believe that, and then ultimately stumbled and hit his head. I don't think it's bad.
Right, or running away from Chloe and stumbled and hit his head.
Poor Chloe.
Or just was drunk, got up, and fell down again, and and hit his head over again. I mean,
on the rock hard ground.
On the rock hard ground. So I mean, the defense is fighting to keep that out. I'm not sure They want that out. I mean, if they think about it, but maybe they have. I mean, obviously, I'm not part of the case, so I have no
They may
idea.
have something going on that ties into that doesn't help them. But bottom line is, they sort of kind of agreed the phrase "the ground was rock hard" is not going to be elicited from the jury,
Right.
from the witness, and also, I guess, his interpretation of how the ground becomes hard is
Right.
also going to be avoided.
I'm not sure why that's, how ground becomes hard, it gets cold,
Well, yeah, I mean, unless he would be testifying that after a certain number of hours at a certain temperature, this is what happens,
Right.
cause and effect based on, to me, it's pretty common sense. Anybody who's lived in an area that's somewhat cold knows over a period of time in the winter, and we're talking January 29th, that's a long time in the cold, the ground gets hard. Some would say hard as a rock. Objection.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't even know that he brings a lot to the mix, really. He's going to say that there was weather and this was going to, ultimately it was going to be a big storm. But remember, most of the storm had not occurred
Right.
at or about the
Right.
time John O'Keefe collapsed on that front yard at 34
Right.
Fairview. It came after that, which at 5:30 in the morning, when Karen Reed and her friends were looking for John O'Keefe, it made it harder to find him.
Right.
But at or about the time he fell, pushed, collapsed, whatever happened, not much snow at that point, which is why a lot of people say, how come all these people coming and going from 34 Fairview, you didn't see anything? And there was one witness who thought they saw a dark shape over, across the lawn near the flagpole.
Right.
And I've been there. It's not that far. It's really not that far from where you'd walk out the front door. It's not a massive front yard. It's more like a normal neighborhood. I just do find it odd that all that, and that's what leads some people to that conspiracy theory, right? They would have seen him because they knew he was there, and that's why they pretended not to see him. They knew he was there.
You also had this snow cleaner person,
I always like the snowplow guy. Yeah.
the snowplow guy who didn't see anybody. It's the most amazing thing because in Hernandez we had a street cleaner that became important. Came through. I don't know. Maybe it's just Massachusetts. There's a dog in
very
every
well could
case.
be.
There's a street cleaner. I don't know. So that was that. Then there was a Commonwealth motions for sanctions against the defense team, mostly Yannetti, because he wrote a brief and apparently he had put in. He said it was accidental. Something that there was something that was privileged or private and protected. It was not supposed to begin. It was under the protective order. And he said, look, I did it unintentionally because look, I put initials in for juveniles. I was aware of that. And then when Hank Brennan called me, I said, oh my gosh, I did. I mean, he owned up to it in regard to that. Then they went to sidebar on then there was an email. Apparently that was released, and it was Proctor from Proctor, the Proctor Factor, talking about how his opinion and how he felt about Alan Jackson. Well, my feeling is, so what? I think we all can surmise how Mr. Proctor feels about Alan Jackson.
Yep, and it probably wasn't very nice.
I would imagine that there's some words in there that we can't say even on this show. And
we probably could, but we wouldn't.
Well, you never know. You never know what can come out of our mouths, right?
Hey, look at M. Crott. Why is the judge so locked on this April 1st date? Makes me wonder. I'm just assuming, based on understanding court dockets and calendars, and you keep pushing one thing, it pushes. It's like a domino series, right? So This is the second trial. That means they've already used it in a way that's clogged up the system, and some would say that's Judge Bev's fault. But I think there's other stuff that needs to be done. And you believe maybe she won't be on the bench all that much longer. Is that you think she's going to get elevated to something?
I think she's going to get elevated. I believe she's going to be elevated. Okay. She's one of the stars. I mean, people don't like her, but she's one of the stars. She was the head of the rules committee, and you just don't do that. If you're not getting appointed by the Commonwealth, the head court, unless you're considered a rising star to one of those committees of which she had for discovery. And she changed the discovery rules, which are very beneficial to defendants going forward, just so you all know on this. So then we had the final thing was a motion for sanctions. They actually went to sidebar for about 20 minutes. And apparently because Yannetti had quoted some grand jury testimony, which is a big no in Massachusetts. And that was
and really anywhere. It's totally sealed in most cases and never released. And if so, it's years later. It's pretty sacrosanct. And so if that was used in paperwork, oopsie. I probably shouldn't have done that.
But it didn't. They didn't come out and say, "Look, there's any sanctions against him," which was good. So I don't know whether she imposed it or, he's like Yannetti is like the guy. He's the local guy. He's the guy everybody likes. He's a good lawyer. We don't want to hurt him. All of these pro-hoc people. They're the boogie people that have come in here that have created the out-of-towners, right? Have created this. And then there was the motion for the scheduling order, which we already talked about, to amend the scheduling order, to move the motion to dismiss argument up until the 17th. The judge said, we're not hearing it on the 17th. That's, the neighboring county, it's a holiday.
We're back over here at the waterfall.
Yeah, well, if you're
here at McCarthy's,
in Suffolk County, it's actually a holiday. It's actually a holiday in Suffolk County, not which is the neighboring county, right? And then there was a motion about the video cameras to reconsider the motion to get the metadata, and there was some back and forth with attorney Elizabeth Little about whether she could look at it or whether they come back on Friday. And I guess they decided to try to look at all the metadata tonight and see if there was any supplemental arguments. That was kind of unclear what happened there.
Yeah. And so then the newest thing that happened, because again, they left court at 1-ish, somewhere in there. And then there was a filing after that.
Right.
Now, I think, Missy, we have that handy. If we don't, I definitely made some notes about it somewhere. Let me reach in my pocket here and get my official.
I have it right here. I have it right here. You have it right there too. You have. I know. I've been going through. We're going to need more of these books because I'm going through Justice Serve TV. We better get our merch store up one of these days.
I know.
Because I'm going through these like there's no tomorrow, dealing with this.
Okay, so this was a motion by the defense to exclude the expert Dr. Wolf, the neurosurgeon. Okay. Now, I hope we have at least a couple of those pages to look at because there was one quote that I thought was very interesting, and that as a defense attorney, I'm not sure I want it out, but they're trying to exclude him. Basically, here are the reasons. Because number one, he's a neurosurgeon. He's not a forensic pathologist like some of our friends are.
Who are board certified. And let's explain what board certification is, because a lot of people don't realize the importance of that. When you are an expert witness, there's an independent board of medical specialties for doctors that has a certain amount of medical specialties, not that many, and there's subspecialties. And you have to practice a while. You have to go through testing. You have to do all sorts of stuff. You just can't come out of medical school and say, oh, hi, I'm an expert in such and such. You have to be declared an expert. And there's various areas. There's forensic pathology, like my husband is involved in. That's usually what a medical examiner is. There's anatomic pathology. There's clinical pathology. My husband has all three board certifications. But it's an independent certification, and it shows you have an expertise. I mean, I was once in a trial that a co-counsel got up and said, oh, put on a glove. And I almost went under the table because you can never tell what a co-counsel is going to do, and said, put on one of these gloves, and said, and he's not a proctologist. And I'm like, oh, dear me. But you get the point. You just can't get out. You can practice, but if you practice and hang up that shingle and says you're an expert, you're really not.
No, you can't just on your own say, I'm an expert because I'm an expert.
Right.
So this guy's a neurosurgeon. Great. I mean, good for him. He is truly a brain surgeon, right?
Right.
But that's not what is required to be qualified to give an opinion as to the cause of death, the mechanism of injury, or, interestingly enough, the ground conditions. Why is everybody so concerned about the ground conditions? But those are the three opinions that are being elicited by this from this expert, and the defense is saying, well, no, not a pathologist, not qualified to do any of this mechanical study, and he's a treating doctor.
Yeah,
he's
and in Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, like most other states that have a medical examiner system, Massachusetts does. You have to be, and one of the things they require is that only a medical examiner can do cause and manner of death and how this person died, in terms of state certificate, a death certificate, right? You can't just hire the local
this guy
person.
Can't even sign a death certificate.
Yeah, for a suspicious death. If it's just somebody who died of heart disease and they're your patient, then you can do it. But if it's a suspicious death, you can't do it. It's got to be a medical examiner case.
So here's something. I'm going to pull this up here. I think I've got it figured out here. This is the newest filing. It was filed. You can barely see it there at 1 something this afternoon. So, I mean, the day was not even cold. Oh, I can't seem to advance it with my system here. Doggone it. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, somewhere down below this document. Is there a way for me to do anything with it here? Bear with me here while I'm trying to figure it out on the fly. Nope, doesn't look like I can advance it, but I will tell you, I can see it, and I'm going to read it to you.
Right.
There is a quote in here as they're talking about the lack of qualification. There is a quote, and it is from the prior testimony, I guess it is. And he's basically saying, among other things, that the cause of the injuries did not come from, let's say, a blow from a blunt object, and even says, or likely from the impact with a vehicle. Now, seems to me that might be something I would want the jury to hear from this expert. And if you're going to exclude his testimony, you're going to exclude pretty much everything. I'm a little confused as to why they would.
Well, I think we just lost Michael here, and what he's talking about is this motion I have in my hand. I'm sure he's going to pop right back, and there he is. He popped right back on.
I'm not sure why they would not want. I guess they got to get rid of all of it, but they quoted in that document what I thought was pretty beneficial information for the defense. So
well, we'll see. Maybe there's other. We don't
tomorrow,
have the
maybe
report.
not.
We don't have the report. So tomorrow, I assume they're going to get to this motion, or maybe not. I don't know. They're going to do the motion to dismiss. Mr. Jackson said it would take him about an hour and a half, I think, to argue, and then Mr. Reed said. Mr. Brennan said, I'm sorry, Hank Brennan said something about maybe a half an hour. I take these lightly, shall I say?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's time and there's attorney time. So, every attorney ever, it's almost like you learn this in law school. Ms. Kenney Baden, do you have anything extra? Yeah, just briefly, Your Honor. Yeah, just briefly. Yeah. Nobody's just briefly, right? Just a few questions.
I don't know why they call it a brief even.
When you're right, they call them briefs. They're not brief. Alan Jackson said what? He said about an hour. About an hour? Is that what he said?
Yeah,
he was
about an
take?
Hour. I think he's about an hour. But because she said, because remember, there's that federal court hearing, which is at 9 a.m. if I recall, right, in federal court. And so she said, be here at 11, but you could, if you're here earlier. Right. We'll we don't know. The federal court may have moved it up for them to move to 8:30. I've had that happen, and we don't know.
That would be helpful. It is, from here and from the Dedham court, it's about 45 minutes on a good day. It's only 24 miles, but we're talking about, Boston rush hour. It's right in the heart of Boston.
Right.
So that can't be an easy slog. So that's going to take a while getting there. Maybe it's a little quicker coming back, but we'll be at the Dedham courthouse.
I think she was trying to try to see when her day would end tomorrow with all these motions, right?
Yeah, and I know in her mind it's 4:00, but I'm pretty sure if they got close, and they could squeeze in one last, because most of them after the fully throated motion to dismiss, most of them are pretty short and quick, I would think. So that's the goal. Get them all in tomorrow, and we'll be there. For that.
And I hope we've answered all your questions, although I will put this back up. Nancy says you need a scarf and a hat. I think she thinks we're abusing you.
Yeah. I haven't gotten the California out of me. I've only been on the East Coast 20 years. I still think I'm in California. There was a note from, Prince Lover said that I was kidnapped by Starlink. and we do have the Starlink up and running tonight, and it's flawless, works great. Operator error is a problem, but Starlink.
It was like pilot error. You don't want to know why.
I was looking for that document, and I took myself off the air. All right.
Yeah. Anyhow, now I know that a lot of you are watching, and there's a lot of you chatting. We have to tell you, and we have to ask you to please, while you're chatting right now, could you hit that like button for us? That gets us into, and the reason why we're pressing on it, we're supposed to ask you constantly, but we don't do that. Michael and I forget because we really like to talk about the substance. But that gets us into the YouTube algorithm to get shared, because we're a pretty young streaming TV station. Okay, so it gets us in the algorithm, and you can subscribe, and you can like us, and you can share us, and you can hit that notify button. And guess what? It's free. It doesn't cost you any money at all, at all. But it does help us, and it helps you. Some of you have found us through that. And also, we have volunteers who are moderating the stream, who work extremely, extremely hard here. Missy is on tonight. She is prepared thumbnails. She is leaving. She's tweeting. She's doing all sorts of things and all. And so and to honor her, please hit that like button for Missy. Even if you hate us, hit the like button.
Where's the don't like button? That's what I'm going to hit. All right. Well, I'm going to get out of here, and we'll see you first thing in the morning. Right?
We're going to plan to start streaming at 10 a.m.
At 10-ish,
we'll probably,
see what happens.
And if it's not there, we'll just replay from today until they go live. And then we will jump on the air as soon as they go live, and we'll be here to talk about it all tomorrow. And tomorrow night, you may have to ride home if we have an hour after court. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. And then also, we want to get your questions in. There's a lot of questions we don't answer from the last 3 or 4 shows. Missy's trying to compile a list so that maybe we can do a show where we answer all the questions that you may want to have and didn't get a chance for us to answer. And we'll try to run through them like a comment show.
Yeah,
so,
like a little Karen Reed catch up. Karen Reed comment catch up. How about that?
Yeah, Karen Reed comment catch up. Yeah, I like that for alliteration. Yeah, so of course we'll be on the air on Wednesday, and we'll be on the air on Thursday. But anyhow, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, Michael Bryant. I know you have some words of wisdom.
Oh yeah. So until then, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenney Baden. And if you like us, hit that like, subscribe, share, and notify button, and we will see you tomorrow.